One of the most iconic pop groups of all time, ABBA enchanted audiences around the globe with their music and performances. Their painful split was the result of a complex web of interpersonal and psychological issues that lay beneath the polished veneer. Join me as I delve into the untold tales of courage, love, and tragedy that both molded and ultimately tore ABBA's journey apart. In the background, what was happening? Examining the tragic events that altered Anni Frid-Lyngstad and Benny Andersson's trajectory with ABBA is a must. All four members of ABBA, Anni Frid-Lyngstad, Benny Andersson, and Björn Ulvaeus were instrumental in the group's formation, meeting for the first time in 1972 in Stockholm. Every member's first initial was used to create the group's name. After winning the 1974 Eurovision Song Contest, the three became famous worldwide with classics like Dancing Queen and Mamma Mia. ABBA's relationships inside the group were complex, nevertheless, despite their success. Anni Frid-Lyngstad and Benny Andersson's breakup was a major issue. They had a passionate and successful beginning, but things went downhill from there. They divorced in 1981 after splitting up in 1980. It is incredible that Andersson and Lyngstad continued to be ABBA members despite all of their issues. We can collaborate much more effectively now that Benny and I are not together, stated Lyngstad. Even while we still talk, our relationship isn't as solid as it once was. The secret to ABBA's success. More than 380 million recordings were sold worldwide as a result of their collaborative creative production. Members of ABBA and his influence on the band is substantial. Waterloo SOS, Dancing Queen, The Winner Takes It All, and a number of Andersson and Björn Ulvaeus' other top songs hail from this collaboration. Andersson oversaw production of Lyngstad's 1971 solo album Frida, which garnered positive reviews. Their collaboration resulted in the hit film and TV series Mamma Mia. But the friendship between Andersson and Lyngstad made them one of the most attractive couples in the history of pop music. Björn Ulvaeus and Agnetha Fältskog were also part of the group and were not slow. Björn Ulvaeus' and Fältskog's relationship. Following their 1969 meeting, they were wed in 1971. In addition to their unparalleled singing career, they were married and had 2 children. Their private and public lives would blend to create the illusion of oneness when ABBA was at the pinnacle of their worldwide success. However, things were escalating behind the scenes. At the height of their career, ABBA parted ways in 1979. Despite the initial impression of friendliness, it proved to be mentally draining for everyone involved. Fältskog and Ulvaeus continued working together despite their individual issues. While they were going through the divorce proceedings, Ulvaeus wrote the very sad lyrics for the song The Winner Takes It All. It was wonderful to hear Fältskog express her own feelings. Over time, though, she found it increasingly difficult to perform the song because of the overwhelming sadness and anguish it evoked in her. Despite their marital troubles, Fältskog and Ulvaeus remained ABBA's subsequent hits cornerstones. Band members' ability to work together was critical to their success throughout time. They worked together to ensure ABBA's legacy lives on in music, even though they sacrificed a lot behind closed doors to make it seem like everything was okay. Even though Christina Sass is 28 years Ulvaeus' junior, they began dating in 2022. In his private life, something out of the ordinary occurred. While Christina was selling ABBA's Trip album for Universal Music Group, the two were dating. Ulvaeus and Christina made their public debut as a couple when his musical Pippi Longstocking premiered. Having Christina in his life brings so much joy, and Ulvaeus expressed his gratitude for her. Leaving Ulvaeus in 1980 made Fältskog's pursuit of happiness much more challenging. Her life after her divorce was incredibly interesting to her fans and the general public. An extensive web of relationships was spun by her. She dated Swedish ice hockey player Peter Sedegren for a short time in the early 1980s. In a low-key ceremony in 1990, she wed surgeon Thomas Sonnenfeld. Prior to their 1993 divorce, no one knew about the couple's secret marriage. Dutch truck driver and ABBA fan Gert van der Graaf started dating Fältskog in the early 1990s. Her partnership with this man was completely out of the blue. Rumor has it that van der Graaf had a 2-year obsession with Fältskog before the couple made their romantic debut in 1997. For a few years, they remained together despite the instability in their relationship. Despite everything she was through, Falskog's shame extended beyond her sexual life. However, the most renowned singer of her day continued to struggle with insecurity even while on stage. She had a lot of self-esteem issues when her marriage and ABBA broke up. Falskog did not enjoy being the focus of attention and preferred solitude. She was already lacking self-assurance due to her outward appearance, and this only made things worse. Since she felt awkward and even afraid in large gatherings, Long claims that she frequently dreamed about being devoured by admirers. The terrifying ordeal she had during an electric storm only served to heighten her fear of flying and her sense of isolation. As a result of Falskog's perception that she was competing with her, her own troubles intensified. Both female musicians were consistently friendly to one another while they were in public. According to Falskog, their diverse experiences and personalities made it hard for them to communicate. She asserted that Frida and I were fundamentally different due to our backgrounds, character traits, and temperaments. She made the observation that they might get weary and angry with one another. She was already insecure, and the thought of competing only made her feel worse. Something else that needed fixing was Agnetha Falskog's English proficiency. Despite her acting chops, she was mortified by the prospect because her English was so limited. She was particularly self-conscious when she had to do interviews or make public appearances. This was particularly the case when there was an international audience. This was just one more part of her public persona, like the enigmatic Greta Garbo. She yearned for a life away from the limelight. Her linguistic difficulties were most apparent during ABBA's peak of worldwide stardom. Since Falskog did not grow up speaking English as her first language, she had to work very hard to succeed. Additionally, she was responsible for maintaining the group's impeccable reputation. The pressure to perform flawless routines and speak well in a foreign language during interviews severely lowered her self-esteem. The stress only served to heighten her fear and make her want to isolate herself, so she did her best to avoid anything that could make her feel weak or exposed. Along with her professional struggles, Falskog also had devastating personal losses, starting with her mother, Birgit. Falskog's passing in 1986. Many are curious in Birgit's mental health and the circumstances of her tragic death, as she battled depression and died in a horrific accident. Her marriage to Agnetha's dad was troubled, so. Ingvar, Birgit's mental condition has deteriorated throughout the years. Due to Ingvar's drinking problems, the marriage became more difficult. Agnetha was so upset by what was happening that she kept quiet about her mother's death for over a decade. When she wrote in her book that Birgit had died in an accident, she seemed to be deceiving the public. Concerning mental health, this was a very awkward and embarrassing period in history. After her mother passed away, Falskog saw her father on multiple occasions. Regardless of the fact that he was already in a special care facility due to his deteriorating health, after Birgit passed away, Agnetha felt even more isolated as he had no family to turn to for support. She went on to say that once her mother passed away, she felt totally isolated and had to cope with her loss on her own. His alcohol-related death in 1995 added insult to injury in her already tragic mother's death. Agnetha felt entirely alone as Ingvar, a former factory worker, had a drinking problem that led to the dissolution of his marriage. Her mental health suffered yet another devastating setback. She was already feeling vulnerable and alone after the abrupt deaths of her parents. Tragedies in Falskog's personal life like these only served to heighten her desire to avoid the spotlight.